Hey everybody, welcome back to Visual Novel Book Club. I'm your pal Slowbeef. With me, of course, my good friend Rosella.
Hello.
My good friend Pulahoko.
I'm back.
My good friend Jim.
Hey everybody.
My good friend Oren Ronan.
Good evening.
Unfortunately, Turbo had a last minute thing and couldn't make it. I don't know why I said it like that, but they did. So whatever.
Can I start with a little correction segment?
Sure.
Okay.
Because we just published our first episode, and it has been brought to my attention that we spoke a little bit about the origin of Sherlock Holmes' name. And I mentioned it came from Lupin III story. And of course, it didn't come from Lupin III story. Lupin III is the anime character that's based on, it's supposed to be the grandchild of the original Arsène Lupin. So thank to whoever it was that commented on your video. And
we are going to get so many emails about that blunder. You have no idea.
Sorry that. The thing is that I'm editing the second episode now, and I say Lupin III like 50 times in that one. just over and over.
It flows.
Can't you just cut out third and have it like be really just Lupin and then like a quick cut, you know?
Because we have a much longer conversation about the Sherlock Holmes name in that one.
It just flows really well.
Just keep saying Lupin III over and over.
This is what happened when none of us fact checks you. Like we just all go along with this. Like, yeah, that sounds right.
Well, usually he knows, you know, like usually it's something about like Japanese puns and I'm not going to be like, fuck that guy, you know, but.
Oh, and I just looked it up. It's Toasty Mozart on your comment section who corrected me. So thank you.
Thank you, Toasty Mozart. What was the name again?
Toasty Mozart.
Toasty Mozart. Gotcha. Alrighty. Oh, I'm clipping. I should stand away from my microphone a little bit. Alrighty. Listen. Chapter 4 has begun. It's episode 4. And this time we did the investigation of Chapter 4, which I don't get the title. Maybe I should, but it's the case of the clouded Kokoro?
Kokoro, yes. So...
What's a... Yeah.
Kokoro.
I feel like I know that.
Kokoro is... Well, do you know what Kokoro means in Japanese? You should.
Does that mean heart?
Yes. Well,
I guess from Kingdom Hearts I should, yeah, but I don't.
Kingdom Kokoros.
Well, yes, it's complicated, but let's not go about the exact meaning of Kokoro right now. Anyway, the way it's still Kokoro in the English translation is because Kokoro is the probably second most famous or tied for second most famous book written by Natsumo Saseki. And it's titled Kokoro in its English translations too, so that's the reference here.
Oh.
Wait. Well, I guess I don't want to spoil it, so I'll try to remember to ask the question incredulously when we meet someone this...
Well, yeah, we'll get to that when we meet him, but I have questions to you about how much you know and don't know about Japanese literature at that point.
Yeah, please remind me.
Boy, I know a lot about Japanese literature, believe you me.
So, well, this one opens... Let me pull my notes here. This one opens again on a Wilson and Sholmes story, you know, and they're thinking about the case of that young lady who collapsed with a knife in her back, really, you know? And it starts out like in that sort of, not sepia, but, you know, like that like journalish style of like, not, you know how they do it. But when the chapter opens proper, of course, Naruhodo and Susato are in the Lord Chief Justice's office. What's his name again? Male Strongheart, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And they basically accidentally stayed in an expensive hotel the night before, just because, like, you know, obviously it was late. Naruhodo didn't know where he was going or anything, you know. So I forget how much it cost. Like, I think It was £3. Yeah. And so they're like worried about their stipend running out or whatever.
Yeah, they said if they keep spending at that rate, they'll go through it in like 10 days. Which do we know how long their stay is supposed to be?
I guess until they do the thing that Kazuma wanted to do.
Well, it's ridiculous to say a semester because I don't think like in the 19th century university was the same, but that's what study abroad usually is, right? It's like
I think it's supposed to be at least a year.
Yeah.
The trip is long too, so it would be wasteful to be any less, probably.
Yeah, if you're spending 2 months on a boat, you better be there for at least a year.
Yeah.
That's true.
They haven't specifically said yet, though.
You also lose like a day because of the time zone, so yeah, but we don't know for sure. So it's like, so Lord Strongheart arrives, confirms that we won McGilded's case. You know, he's like, you are in fact a lawyer in the eyes of the British Empire, and I've got another case for you already. So this is going great. But we also learned that Magnus McGilded died after the trial.
Yeah, he was the one in that burning carriage we saw at the end.
Yeah, he burned to death.
So yet another person who's inconvenienced by knowing Naruhodo.
I'm just gonna point out, no way. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think any of us buy this, right?
No.
Like, without knowing anything, I was like, yeah.
It's a burned corpse in there. Something makes them think that it's McGilded, but come on.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I don't know. I guess I'll be the doubtful one.
You think it actually is McGilded?
I think it is.
Wow. Okay.
Given what we were told at the very end of this segment about Van Zix and his past trials.
Well, we do learn a little more too, which will come up. But any rate, like the new case for our new case, the trial is fortunately tomorrow, so we have like a day to prep, not just whatever. There's no defense attorney. Strongheart. Oh dear, it looks like I was typing and I missed. I typed was wait to clarify what. I guess what we mean. I'm sorry, I butchered it in my notes. It's like, all right, whatever. Strongheart asked us to clarify what we mean by fulfilling Asogi's will, and we admit we don't know. Like I have no idea what his will was. I just know I want to do it for him.
That there was something special that he wanted to do, but he never actually told us.
Yeah,
it looks like Strongheart knows.
Yeah.
I feel like, I don't know why I got this, but did you feel like Strongheart was maybe a little relieved that we didn't know what it was, Or maybe that's just wishful thinking on my part or something extrapolative, but...
No, I did get the impression that it seemed like he thought we were here to, like, topple the government or something.
Yeah, like, he didn't like what Cosimo wanted to do, so maybe he's happy that, like, we don't know. He's definitely prying, for sure,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if he definitely approves or not, but he was surprised that we would know. It seems that way. And then once he realizes that we don't know, he's like, oh, okay. Then no, we're going to stop talking about this now.
Yeah, exactly. Then he leaves us with the police inspector who just arrived. And the police inspector looks like he's holding, I put in parentheses, looks like he's holding a cup of fries, which I'm like, that can't be right. It's kind of right.
It is.
Yeah.
You're half right.
He's holding fish and chips.
It's definitely
wrapped in
fish
a
and
newspaper
chips.
cup.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And it's like there's one piece of fish sticking out, and he does a thing where he bites into it and he'll like shift the cup up, which kind of like makes it, you know what I mean? Like makes the animation work so it could be endless.
Yeah.
He's Lieutenant Gregson. Or we don't learn that yet, actually. Because now you can look around a bit. And I will say that if you looked at the knights, there's like suits of armor that are around. Susato looks in her book and says that they're cursed, these knights, and that they are haunted by evil spirits always, and that they wander around at night. And Naruhodo believes her because it's in the book, and she's like, yeah, you can ask me about anything about Britain and I'll let you know, which is kind of awesome. Anyway, my word of the chapter I learned was frippery, which Gregson brings up. That's his name, Inspector Gregson, which is, by the way, Todd Rear for Phyllis Things. So what's funny is we decided to try to make small talk, and Naruhodo is like, I know how to do this. I've heard how British people do this. And he's like, how's the weather? And that's where he said, I learned the word frippery because he's like, why are you bothering me with this frippery? I don't even care to talk about the weather with you or whatever. And then Susato is like, let me, I'll try it. Like, how's the weather? And then he's like, oh, milady, the weather. And he like, it's always balmy here in London. So he's really nice to her. Which is fine.
Yeah, well, she's way more composed in these situations.
Mm-hmm.
And so like it's pretty common that Naruhodo's like bumbling and can't get the words out and says it awkwardly, while she, in most cases, is really smooth in the way she transitions into this conversation.
I thought Gregson was simping, actually. No, I'm sorry. I just wanted to use that word because I'm old. But anyway, let's see here. No, yeah. So, but what's funny is though, like, she knows him too, Gregson, right?
Yes.
Yep.
And this is accurate. Tobias Gregson is it's probably the second most behind Lestrade for the detective that features in these Sherlock Holmes stories. So in this world, Tobias Gregson frequently pops up in the Sherlock Holmes stories.
Right. In Rance magazine. Interesting. I didn't know that, actually. It's funny because after we talked about Lestrade last time, I remember, like, I don't know Holmes that well, but I remembered that then, but I totally did not know about Gregson.
Is the least known one from the two prominent detectives in Sherlock Holmes stories.
Yeah. But the quote they use is accurate, where Holmes says that he's the best of the bad bunch, or the sharpest of a bad bunch.
I say.
Basically, he thinks that Gregson is the smartest detective at Scotland Yard. Is
Gregson kind of like Holmes's Edgeworth, or is that, I guess, Moriarty?
No, yeah, that's Moriarty. Gregson's just, the cops, the bobbies, and pretty much everybody working at Scotland Yard is really depicted almost comically. Like, they're really dumb in Sherlock Holmes stories, which is kind of common for the time. Cops don't really get depicted as smart or doing any crime solving until way later in literature. But in this case, he's just kind of, because he features, like, Lestrade's just sort of comic relief. He's not really that bright. He's just around, and he's kind of just tenacious in what he will do to sort of, always go after the wrong man. Gregson is a little more considered and respects Holmes' opinion a bit more. In this, they've kind of that's not what he is in this depiction. He's just sort of he's more the comical, ruffled feathers, doesn't really know what he's doing English detective.
Harumphing.
Yes.
The harumphing. He has, in Rance magazine, he has a friendly rivalry with Holmes, and Gregson is not a fan of his newfound fame, and he's paranoid people are whispering about him, is what I wrote in my notes. Although I guess, to be fair, it's not paranoia if it's actually happening, right? So I don't know. We don't know that for sure. I'm just saying, like, he's not happy.
Yeah, in particular, he's not happy with the way that he's being depicted in the stories, because he says that the bobbies are on the beat and they're always doing the investigating, and then Sherlock Holmes comes in and just does his thing and then says that he solves the crime and he gets all the credit.
But he gives us kind of an overview of the case too, right? Where this woman was stabbed in the back, not fatally. She's in the hospital recovering.
We finally get a case that's not a murder.
I know, right?
How often does that happen?
Yeah, she seems to be in a coma, though. We can't get a statement at first, so she's not. Yeah.
I don't know, but I'm predicting she's not long for this world.
For now, it's not a murder.
It's just an almost murder.
I'll say this: this case is not a murder. That's correct. So. Whether I think you'd open a new case technically or something, but who the hell knows in this fast and loose world of 19th century British justice. We do learn also the prosecutor is again von Zieks, and we're kind of confused on that because it's like, well, why is he here if it's not even like a murder case? And he likes to send, the defendants to the gallows, and Gregson's like, well, that's a good question. You can ask him in court tomorrow. It's like, all right. But then Gregson also warns us that he thinks that Zeeks uses black magic. And like, it's basically like, look what happened to McGill did. Yeah, fine, he won the case, but look what happened to him,
Yeah, actually, when we when Sissotto points out that hey, we got the no guilty verdict, he's like, oh, I never said he won every case. Just something happens to everybody he goes against.
So at this point, you can now leave, right? You can go to Briar Road, which is the crime scene, or you can visit inmate 53 in prison, who is, of course, the accused. I did go to Briar Road first. I don't know about anybody else, because you're supposed to go to the prison to advance the plot.
Yeah, I did, just to see what I could see there, and it's not much.
Not much. Yep.
You got some Susato fangirling about the Scotland Yard a bit, which is fun.
Yeah. She really wants to wear the hat.
Although I can't remember if we brought this up last time, but I just really appreciate that when I look at something, there's a little check mark that says that I've looked at it, and I can look at other things now. That is so handy.
It is right. Yeah, it is really helpful, actually.
I think they introduced that in the when they made the move to 3DS. I think they started making it so when you observe the scene, it tells you what you have and what you haven't observed. So yeah, that finding what hotspots were available was certainly a pain point in the original trilogy.
And in all these kind of games, really.
Wait, was it the DS or the 3DS, did you say?
The 3DS. So like the...
Yeah, okay.
Because they got... So basically 1 through 4, the original trilogy through Apollo Justice were all on the DS. At least in the US, that's I think where we first got our hands on them. And then starting with Dual Destinies is when they made the move to 3D.
Gotcha. Let's see here. Oh, they also mentioned in Briar Road, there's a bicycle with like a bent wheel. You know what I mean? Like the front wheel is kind of like dented in a bit. And, but they mentioned that bicycles are in fashion and they're thinking of changing ladies' dress to accommodate. And, you know, Naruhodo does the like dark place thing, but unironically. And he's like, I don't think that'll catch on, you know?
He doesn't think bicycles are going to catch on. That's what he doesn't think.
Yeah, exactly. He doesn't think bicycles are going to catch on, right? But you know what I mean? Like that whole like, it's never going to catch on. And it's like, oh, you're so wrong. I will say, though, to give him credit, he's concerned about the black smoke coming from the chimneys, which is caused by coal heating in the houses. And he's worried about it turning the sky black. So he did call carbon emission, you know, like
wow.
he called climate change, to be fair. So wrong on bicycles, but right on the important stuff, you know, although I guess bicycles would help. But whatever, you know, you get the idea. The only other thing I noticed, too, is if you look in the horizon in the distance, they mentioned Crystal Tower that's being built in 6 months' time for the Great Exhibition, which we've heard of before. But but yeah, if you try to look at the crime scene, you're shooed away from Scotland Yard. And then for possibly, quote, conspiring with that fellow from Japan with the mustache. And we do know that there's nowhere for an attacker to hide here because it's just an open street. So wherever this woman got stabbed. So anyway, what happens when we get to prison?
It is... So when we go to the actual prison, we get to meet the suspect, who I gotta be honest is really annoying.
I do not like this guy.
I don't either.
I like him.
I don't like his design. I don't like his character movements. I just I like McGilded better.
So
good, yeah.
Did any of you recognize the name Natsume Soseki?
No.
Not at all.
Nope.
Okay. So, Natsume Soseki is a real person.
That's the question I was going to ask you when you said that. I'm like, he's a real guy? So anyway.
He's actually, this is a case where the game is written expecting you to know that he's a real guy because he's one of the most famous Japanese authors of the 20th century. And everyone in Japan knows who he is, including how he looks, because he was actually on the 1,000 yen bill until the mid-2000s.
I just wrote that he looks a lot like Edgar Allan Poe.
I was going to say, I thought they modeled him after Poe.
So go look Natsume Soseki in Wikipedia. There's a very famous picture of him that is actually...
But it was the cartoon version of him we see in the game. All right, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, but that pose that is on Wikipedia is one of the sprites that he has in the game. It's based on this photograph.
I'm sorry, when I Google Natsume Soseki, the first image is from this game.
Yep. I'm going to edit the Wikipedia so that's actually there. Hold on.
Natsume Soseki, the character from...
Well, you know... The Wikipedia has the English Wikipedia has a legacy section, and 1/4 of it is about the game.
Oh God!
And this is not Natsume Soseki's legacy, let me tell you.
And it is now.
Yeah.
Like Natsume Soseki has multiple feature films made about his life.
Well, I didn't see any of them, but I've played this game, so what does that tell you?
And now I can't read his Wikipedia page, otherwise I'll get spoilers.
He's extremely famous and influential. One of the most famous Japanese authors. His most famous book, you might have heard of it, is called I Am a Cat. Any of you heard about this book?
No.
I feel like I may have at some point.
I'm just going to throw out, if you're going to ask us any questions about Japanese literature and stuff, I'll probably go out on a limb and say you can at least default me to a no. Okay. I don't know anything.
So let me give you just a bit about him and how it relates to this game. So he was born in 1867. And in...
Was he born as Natsume Kinosuke in the town of Babashita in the end? I'm sorry.
He was. Sasaki is a pen name.
Okay.
I think he also says that in the game, actually.
Yeah.
He went to England as a student in 1900 when he was 33 he was sent by the Japanese government to study English literature. He had a very bad time in England. He had a huge culture shock. He almost had a nervous breakdown.
Did he get accused of murder?
He was, as far as I know, he was not accused of murder.
Okay.
But he did spend most of his time indoors reading books and develop paranoia. And basically, the depiction of in the game is fairly accurate in this, at least in this way. Yeah, he was in England for 2 years. One thing I didn't know when I researched this was that he was actually married when he went. And his second daughter was born like 7 months after he went to England, so he probably didn't know that his wife was pregnant at the time.
Wow.
Oh, they had telegraphs, didn't they?
Yeah, well, when he left for England, he probably didn't know that his wife was pregnant.
Oh, I see. Then he gets there and he's like, oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, poor guy. Oh, I feel bad for him now. Oh, we got to save him from the murder charge.
And then, of course, he comes back to Japan in January 1903. And in September of 1903, his third daughter is born. So he went right back to it.
Okay, well, I don't dislike him now. I just feel sorry for him.
Old raw dog Natsume, they called him.
The other thing to know is that his most famous book, as I said, is called I Am a Cat. It was his first novel after he came back from England. It's famous. It's a satire about Japanese society at the time, told from the point of view of a cat. And it has a very famous first line that was translated to I am a cat as yet I have no name. And they reference it in this game. It's the first thing you hear him say is a paraphrase of this line. And also, in general, when is depicted as connected to cats in all sorts of media.
You mean in life?
Whenever it is depicted like in a satirical way and like not realistically, it usually has something to do with cats.
Gotcha. Okay.
That's why he has a cat in this game too.
Nice.
Oh, he does, doesn't he?
Yep.
Yeah, and he's known for being very influential about Japanese language, and this game, in Japanese at least, makes a lot of references to his literature and language use. The most relevant one is the thing that he does where he goes in English into alliteration mode.
Yep.
Where he does like his 4 poses. In Japanese, it's actually like 4 kanji compounds that he does. And he's famous for like making a few of those popular. And it's very difficult to localize, but I think they did a good job, at least as much as they could anyway.
Yeah.
Because his entire character and the way he talks, and he's full of references to the real person and his works. And these are things that every Japanese person knows because his works are usually taught in school. So anyone who had played this game has read Natsume Sasaki in Japan.
Right.
Interesting. What am I trying to ask here? So I think, let me ask this, because Jim and Paula, you both said he was pretty annoying. When, like, I did find one trait of his, even though I do like him, like, that was annoying, was that alliteration thing. Is that the same for you?
Yes.
That was pretty much it. And also, just when I first saw him, I was kind of looking at his design, and I was like, this guy's face looks like it's drawn on.
It looks like the actual person, a caricature of the actual person.
Yeah, but like his eyebrows look like they were like drawn on with a pencil.
I mean, he was a cartoon, so.
I mean, yeah, he is a cartoon, but he's even cartoony for a cartoon.
I like his design.
He has like that, I don't know what you call it, but you know, like in like there's like a doe-eyed thing, but it's like an anime where it's like a 2-frame kind of thing where there's almost like little stars in your eye kind of deal. And they do that with the textures of his eyes, and they don't do. I've never seen that in another Phoenix Wright game. Like it stands out weird, and it looks really weird.
Yeah, I noticed that too.
Yeah, and his eyebrows are like they're sloped like a DreamWorks character.
They are uneven. Oh God, Oh God, he is doing the DreamWorks face. Oh no!
Like the first thing I thought when I saw it was like, what is this DreamWorks character?
Oh, oh, not to me.
I thought his alliteration and posing was very charming. I thought it gave him a lot of character.
I do like when he's shaking though.
I didn't like them. They weren't a deal breaker for me, but I think I appreciate it more now that I realize it's like a reference to something.
I'm going to put something in our chat, which is the way he's depicted in another game as an Otome character.
Oh.
Natsume.
Dreamy.
What the hell is this, Oren? What the?
You should put this like in the video when you publish it.
Oh my god. Can this just be the whole like video like graphic and no one will understand why?
Oh man, I can't wait to spend 8 million yen to get Natsume Sosuke in this Otome game and he can date me.
It is a gacha game.
Can I give you my annoying thing? I just want to describe this. I can't stand this about Japanese. So those kanji that make up his name, you see how the third one is like crazy complicated and it's got like there's a ton of like lines in it and stuff. That's the so, right?
Yes.
That's just so. And they're like, it's Natsu is the first one, then meh, then so, and then the last one's Seki. And that one's so much simpler than the so one, and it pisses me off because it's more letter. Anyway, I'm sorry. But am I right on that, or did I get that totally wrong?
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Okay, good. All right, good. Whew. Now we don't have to edit that part out to make me look smarter. So, like, okay. Listen though. Should we keep this train going? Should we shovel some coal into the furnace and keep a move on?
Yeah.
Instead, talk about how Natsume is speaking Japanese, which is the first thing that like we go like, whoa, you're speaking Japanese, and he does his alliterative speaking thing, which we now know is a reference, and it's like I didn't write any of them down, you know.
I mean, they are clever.
Yeah, it's completely different in Japanese because it's a reference. It's like a 4 kanji compound, as I said, which doesn't exist in English. So they had to come up with something. Came up with alliteration.
Like his writing isn't bad. The alliteration is clever.
Well, some of it does feel shoehorned, which is what it got to me. Like he does it so often, and then there were a couple times at the end where like the last 2 would just be like, "Oh, you just needed 2 more. You just shoved them in there."
It is a very clever joke in Japanese, and it's a joke that's impossible to translate. So they had to come up with something. Yeah. Obviously not as good, but I think they did a pretty good job with it.
When he talks about how he didn't. We're getting a little bit ahead of it. Just when he talks about how he doesn't really see what happened. He didn't really see what happened. Mm-hmm. He calls it incredibly, inexcusably, irritatingly inconvenient, and that's yes. A phrase I want to just take with me into my day-to-day life.
That's a good one.
But yeah, we find out that he's in prison because Sherlock Holmes was questioned by the Bobbies, and through his deduction, they came to his apartment and they questioned him right there on the spot. Everyone was speaking English to him, so he couldn't really understand. So he just said, yes, and I'm fine. And through that means he's now in prison.
Yeah. Yes, I do, and I'm fine. So at some point he said, yes, I do, and I'm fine, to a bunch of questions he should not have said that to.
Which I guess makes him Apollo Justice's ancestor. I'm going to just call that canon.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, he is like, he did see the body. He saw like the stab body and he fled because he was afraid, you know, and he was panicked when they asked the questions.
According to him, there was a woman on the street like up ahead from him, and then she just suddenly collapsed and there was no one else there. And then he panicked and then he panicked and ran away.
Okay. Gotcha. Yeah, that's right. Okay. So Naruhodo then is having moments of doubt about like the British justice system himself and everything. And basically Natsume is like, you're a first class lawyer. And actually we're saying, well, we're not really supposed to be the lawyer, more like a locum lawyer, like which is a term I think is more used for doctors, but it's like a person who stands temporarily in a profession. but he refers to us as the locum attorney, I think, for a while.
Locum student Naruhodo Esquire.
That's right. Okay.
He calls us that repeatedly. I love this guy.
We tentatively agree to investigate. We don't say we're going to be his lawyer for sure, because we're so down.
By the way, one of the things that you do in kind of the other Ace Attorney games is like you kind of agree to be somebody's lawyer by showing them your badge. As like, yeah, I've presented you my badge. You can count on me. So I did that to him. And he's like, oh, this must mean that you're going to take my case and defend me. And he's like, Naruhodo's just like,
Naruhodo.
No, I just wanted to show it to you.
I think actually, too, that's how he knows you're a lawyer, right? Because he sees the armband.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, well, why did you even show it to me then?
He also has a habit of calling a lot of things cursed. He curses, I think, the case. He curses that accursed hair Lock Sholmes. We get the return of that joke.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
He just many things he calls cursed.
No, yeah, yes, he does. But what do you call it? So I think at this point I went back to Briar Road then, which I think is what you have to do.
Mm-hmm.
And Gregson's there, and he tells us the role of a Bobby, because Susato really wants to wear, the helmet until she learns Bobbies get up in the morning. They walk 20 miles a day, and they're like kind of like alarm clock people, which I never realized. Like they knock on the windows, everyone's windows, to wake them up. They like light the street lights at the end of the day and stuff, And basically, Gregson is there at the scene and is telling us all that, and then that's when, of course, Susato's like, I guess you're going to have to wear the Bobby hat, Naruhodo. And he's like, what, the typical Ace Attorney joke, like, when did I get that job? But
those were interesting facts, though.
Yeah, no, for sure.
The English playthrough that I'm watching on YouTube to see the English section of the game, the person playing it was really outraged that they used miles and not kilometers. Because they thought it was a translation thing. It's not, of course. They did use miles in England at that point in time. Kilometers is much later. Either. Kilometers is like in the 60s, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. I did not know that at all, actually.
I mean, we certainly had to get imperial units from somewhere.
Yeah. Wow.
You're going to be ready for the next trivia night after you listen to this podcast.
Not me. I forget everything as soon as we talk about it.
But especially if there's a Japanese literature category.
Yeah.
You're going to be going home with so many bar dollars.
You're going to be a millionaire, kid. Just don't mix up the real life. It's like, that's when he was accused of murder. And then a lawyer saved him with a sword. And the guy threw his wine. I don't know. But let's see. Gregson tells us basically that there's actually two witnesses. There were two witnesses who saw Sosuke stab the woman, and it's a Bobby who had been on patrol, and the Bobby's wife, which he doesn't explain. Why is the Bobby's wife with him if the Bobby's on patrol, like working and stuff, And Gregson's like, well, you can ask him tomorrow. Not that, but like in general, like he's like, can we talk to, the Bobby? And he's like, yeah, sure. Tomorrow you can cross-examine him. So it's like, all right, he's not going to help us on that one. I guess discovery hasn't been invented yet.
There's also a snowman on this screen that I find highly suspicious.
Yeah. Where was he? That night?
Why didn't he see anything?
Oh my God. What a piece of crap. One thing, and Gregson, by the way, also opines that he can't figure out really why Zeeks would take this case. I think it's because Zeeks is I think it's because Zeeks is like, this is maybe my chance for revenge on Naruhodo. You know what I mean?
I was just going to say that he had a crush on us, but yeah, same difference.
I mean, I'm not going to say either crush or revenge, but I would say that we're a person of interest to him because we helped him in the last case.
Some people, Zeeks might have a fetish for being defeated in court. There's weirder shit, believe me.
And he became a prosecutor just to satisfy that.
Basically. So I don't think there is anything else we really got from Gregson right now, but like, because one of the things we also figured was if Holmes was there, we can go visit. And we're like, where does Holmes live? And Suzato already knows, and I think we all do, that he lives at, is it 221 East Baker Street?
221B Baker Street.
It's 221B Baker Street. Shit.
You almost had it.
Close. I'll get one thing right this podcast. I swear it. Oh, I got the kanji. Whatever. So on to Baker Street to talk to Holmes, and I don't know why, but we get like an animated sequence, like animation, like fully animated. I guess I should really say, with like them going to a carriage and the carriage guy like bringing us to Baker Street. So there you have it. It's voiced too. Like, oh,
Yeah, that's what we had the last one too, when we first showed up in London.
And I know this is stupid, but it just reminded me of like the Sega CD game that was in London, like the Dracula one.
Dracula Unleashed.
Yeah, because anytime you'd go anywhere, you'd just go to the carriage.
Thank you for the plug.
Yeah, I'm just really disappointed because I was hoping that the scene would last long enough for us to actually talk to Sherlock Holmes, because I don't feel like we've got a voice for him yet. But it keeps coming up in the intro, like the little, sepia toned intro bits where he had his, very, posh, I'm terrible at accents, but haughty kind of thing that I don't think actually fits the character.
Now see here, like that.
Yeah.
Now see here, Walt Wilson, as I'm the great Sherlock Holmes.
Right, exactly. And so I'm just wondering where, like, I guess that's the voice of the character Sherlock Holmes, where we know the person Sherlock Holmes, and that might be edited somewhat. So I really wanted to hear his voice, but that did not happen. We stopped the animation right when we knocked on the door.
Didn't we get his voice at the start of chapter 2 when he's talking to the Russian sailors on the Berea?
Yeah, I thought we did.
Oh yeah, no, we did.
Yeah, when he. Yeah, like, I'll have this solved in a jiffy. And they're like, duh. I don't remember. But I think that was close enough. It's been 2 weeks.
I don't feel like it matched, though. I feel like the book Sherlock Holmes was haughty and pretentious, and I feel like we were... Our game Sherlock Holmes was...
He's awesome.
More of a doofus.
I mean, he's a himbo in this game.
He so is.
Yeah. The sepia narration is not from Sherlock Holmes, it's from John Wilson.
Well, we're going to find out where it actually is coming from shortly.
Well, it's from the literary John Wilson.
One of the intros had did have Holmes say something, and he had a voice that struck me as uncharacteristically haughty.
It's way more like literary Sherlock Holmes as opposed to Sherlock Holmes in this game.
Yeah.
I think we're meant to get to it that the actual Holmes stories in the universe are the actual Sherlock Holmes stories as we know them. And they don't match the actual the character of Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So we go into 221B Baker Street, and we are faced with a room that looks remarkably like, I think, the Write Anything agency, in that it's a complete mess. The room is full of presumably references to Sherlock Holmes stories, though I don't know enough to actually identify them.
Maybe not references, but all kind of science stuff and gadgets. There's a violin there, which he's supposedly played the violin. It's very kind of discombobulated, looks like it belongs to an eccentric person, so it fits pretty perfectly.
Lines of opium everywhere. Oh, no, never mind.
But there is a bust of Napoleon that I know is a reference to a story.
It is. Yeah.
So there's at least one, and then there's just a shelf that looks like it's full of trophies. There's like a shoe, there's like a gavel, some chess pieces. It just, I don't know. It to me it looks like they're references to well-known stories, and I'm just not getting it.
There are. I can just confirm. The shoe is where he keeps his tobacco. There's a bunch of other stuff too. There's VR shot in the wall with bullet holes, which is something that happens in the books, which is for Victoria Regina, Queen Victoria.
I was gonna say
there's a bunch of different references if you want to examine it. So yeah, they're all from the books.
Wow, you have to be smart to play this game.
How many books have we had to read?
How many countries are the books are from?
The far right of the room, though, is very pink.
That's right.
Yeah, this is a room that has 3 screens, which I don't think we've ever seen before. It's huge.
I don't know if I saw that side of the room. I feel like you can advance without it.
Oh, yeah. There's a center view, and then you can look to the left to see Sholmes's, more personal area, and you can look to the right to see something a little more cute with a typewriter and a tea set and more pink.
Yeah, and that girl is here from the end of the last chapter. The little girl, the one who took the device back from Ginny, I forget her name.
Yeah. The girl with the bazooka.
Gina, thank you. Yes. The little girl with the bazooka's here. She doesn't have the bazooka, and it turns out, let's see, Susato is by the way beside herself. She is absolutely fangirling over all the stuff, and basically the girl appears and kind of disappears, I think, to get us tea, and Susato doesn't even notice until she's back again. And then, what do you call it? Because Susato also said the King of Bohemia came here once, King Wilhelm Gottschalk Sigismund von Ormstein, which I wrote down because Ormstein's one letter off from Ornstein. But
it's another reference, to an actual Holmes story.
To Dark Souls, right? Yeah. So Iris, dad or not, I never really care for cute little kid characters in video games.
Yeah,
I did get the gold crown Lunastra though, so yes. Anyway,
we don't get too much of her right now. I mean, you get.
Yeah,
she is one of the main characters of the game, so you get a lot more of her later. This is just an introduction.
It's fine. I don't hate her. I just don't. I'm not into this whole she's so cute kind of crap,
My first impression was that she looks like a magic girl.
The first thing I noticed is that she has phone charms of Sherlock Holmes and herself on her little backpack. It's adorable.
You could actually buy those phone charms if you want.
Yeah, please don't get me wrong. She's not bad.
Actually, no. There is one thing that I like about her when she kind of talks to us, she realizes that we're about to take a new case. We're new here. She just deduces a ton of things about us, and she goes into her own little stylish deduction thing, just like Sherlock Holmes, and all of the deductions are completely accurate and spot on.
Yeah, that's pretty funny, actually. Yeah. I did like that a lot. Yeah. She deduces where we came from, why we're here, blah blah blah. It's that I have to admit was very funny. Her name's Iris Wilson. What?
Wilson.
Which would have been Watson in the original, right?
And at first I was like, oh shit, we gotta tell her dad's dead.
That was my first thought.
That's what I thought too!
Well, we don't get into it, but in this chapter at least, but there was a John H. Wilson that died, and we don't know what his connection is with this girl yet.
Yeah.
Right.
Because we talked to her. We talked to her, and like you said, there's the room, there's the left is Holmes's area, and the right is hers. And she talks to her. She's like, "Yeah, no, we're roommates. Don't worry about it. I live here. Holmes lives here, and it's fine."
We do ask about her parents. She just kind of waves it away. She says they're not around.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and at one point we're like, "Oh, are you Holmes's daughter?" And she's like, "Oh God, no." And she's like, "No, I'm just I just need a roommate, so I live here with a grown man. That's normal for a 10-year-old."
I mean, to be fair, in 19th century Britain, maybe it is, but no, it's it's expensive, so
She's also apparently a doctor of medicine at age 10.
Yeah, this is when she says, "Oh, right, I write the Sherlock Holmes stories," and Susato's incredulous, like, "No, but there's the guy, and he's the doctor of medicine." She's like, "Yeah, I have one of those. I'm 10, by the way."
Humble brag. No, she's like, yeah. So apparently, yeah, she's the real John Wilson. She embellishes the story. She wrote the story of the speckled band. She called it.
She's writing it now because Holmes just told her about it.
Yeah.
Oh, that's also how she knows who we are, right? Because Holmes mentioned it, or maybe not.
But she's going to make it about a snake in her story.
Exactly. Yeah, she's changing it back to Holmes. Is ridiculous, but because it's more interesting. She basically says she changes the details here and there.
I just like the dynamic between these two. Sherlock Holmes goes out and solves a case, and then he comes home and brags about it to this 10-year-old who then writes a book about it.
And then she's like, "Okay, where the fuck's your half of the rent?"
And she does a self-insert as an old dude.
Yeah.
I think we talked about this, whether we, like how exactly, Sholmes was being portrayed and like whether or not he's a himbo. And I feel like this confirms my theory that he absolutely is, because the stories are absolutely being edited to make him correct, right? Like, we're making up the whole snake thing, which was his original thought, and we're like, yeah, what if that were true, though? Because that would be a really good story. So what if Herlock Sholmes were just a complete genius and right all the time? Whereas the actual Herlock Sholmes, as depicted in this video game, is right like 40% of the time.
He needs some help, like he's
a couple nudges.
Right.
I still think that there are a lot of moments here where, like, it seems like Sholmes is like acting a little bit. That he knows more than he gives out.
Yeah.
Well, this is kind of like unconfirming that for me, in a way. You know what I mean? Like, now it seems like, no, maybe like what you see is what you get, But, what am I trying to say here? But, like, it's Iris now who's actually kind of, doing it. You know what I mean? So, I don't know. I guess, like, what I'm saying is last chapter, or chapter 2, I had that theory of, like, oh, Holmes is pretending to help Naruhodo or whatever. But I'm like, maybe maybe he just isn't that great, and it is Iris the whole time.
I think you're getting that impression because, like, he'll go along with something, but when he's corrected, he'll just immediately go with that. As if he knew it the whole time.
I think I've got that impression because I'm correct. But no, you're right. Anyway, so
I'm going himbo Sherlock Holmes all the way, taking it straight to the bank.
All right, I'm going. It's Iris behind the scenes pulling the strings, and now Naruhodo. But anyway, whatever. What happened? So yeah, then we're like, kind of like, okay, we're defending somebody. We want to find. Is Herlock around? And she's like, no, he's running an errand, unfortunately. But if you want like help on this or whatever, you can give this note to Gregson, and he'll help you out.
She calls him Gregsy because she has cute little nicknames for everybody.
I forgot to bring that up. Yeah, because she calls us Runo, I think, right?
Yep.
And which
Susie
Susie and Runo.
Yeah, Susie I think fits a little better. Like Runo, I was like Runo, I'm like Runo. Yeah, okay, got it.
Yeah, this is one of the things where I think it's a very good translation, but it just feels weird to me. In Japanese, it doesn't really make any sense. But the translation here is that in Japanese she calls him Naruhodo-kun and Susato-chan. So she immediately goes to the like friendly honorifics, which doesn't make sense because the English doesn't have honorifics. Right. They translated it to the much more accurate and like nicknames, but it just feels weird to me because I'm used to the original.
Didn't they do that in like Phoenix Wright also? Like, isn't that why she calls him Nick? She being Mia Fey?
Yeah. That's a usual translation to like honorifics. They make them nicknames.
Or Feeney in Trials and Tribulations, which I didn't like, and I know I'm in the minority, but whatever. Anyway, so what happens next here? So, she says to go to Gregson and give him this postcard, right?
Yeah, it's a pink postcard with, I think it's 5 shillings on it, and a note on the back that says, hey, this guy in the black is going to ask you questions, just tell him whatever he wants to know.
I trust it won't be a problem. Which is like an interesting sort of like, not threat, but what's the word I'm looking for? Like, like, you're going to do what I'm asking you.
It's like a power play.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So, with that, let's see. So, we go back to Briar Street. Gregson, when we give her the postcard, he refers to her as her ladyship. So he's like totally like, yeah, okay, I'll do it, And basically the money, the 5 shillings, is kind of like his royalties for being in Rance magazine,
Yeah.
So he still doesn't like it, but it seems like here he kind of is okay with it, maybe more than he let on, So
the way they say that the amount they paid him was enough to keep him in fish and chips for a month. So yeah, that's I guess it depends on how often you get those, but I can understand that that sort of softening the blow a little bit.
For sure. So Gregson does help us, and he lets us know about where Sosuke, whatever, was staying, and we get to go to a new location, which is his lodgings right there on Baker Street. Should be mentioned, by the way, there are windows on this building, but they are bricked up, and we're going to learn about that too in a bit. But when we go there, we actually meet his landlord, who lives on the second floor. I guess there's a ground floor too, so it's like ground floor, first floor, second floor. Yeah. So you know what I mean, like the third one up, but technically the second. The
British second floor, as opposed to the American second floor.
Right.
Actually, do you want to know a wacky thing? In New Jersey, this one county or whatever, they do the same thing, and the reason is because in that county you have to pay a different property tax if your building is 3 floors or higher. So some offices will make the first floor the ground floor to get around it.
Yep.
Wait, in America is ground floor the first floor?
No.
So it's
yes.
No, usually not.
Yes.
I'm just saying, it's weirdly in this one place.
Usually ground floor and first floor are synonymous in America.
Exactly. And there's no 13.
Yeah.
Usually.
But not if you can evade taxes. And that's the American way.
One floor up from the ground floor is always the second floor, though.
Yeah.
You go from the ground floor to the second floor.
In this game, they refer to ground floor, first floor, second floor, which means the first floor, the second floor, and the third floor.
Yeah, this is the way it's done in England and also in my home country. So that's what I'm used to.
It's all over Europe, yeah. Everywhere in Europe has the same thing, and in other places too. I think there's a lot of the world has ground first, second. First is an elevated floor above the ground.
I'll tell you, for sure, New York City, at least the buildings I've been in are there's lobby or first floor, and then second floor is the next floor up from the ground,
Yes. Our first elevated floor almost everywhere in America is called the second floor.
Right. I'm pointing out there's one place in New Jersey where,
that one.
For taxes, there's a thing. But anyway. And I'm sure other places, but whatever. Generally. Anyway. So we meet the landlord, who looks like the moon. He's an old war hero. His name is... I don't get his name. His name's Garadeb. John Garadeb.
It's a character from a Holmes story.
For God's sake.
It's such a weird name, though.
So in this case, the character from the Holmes story has nothing to do with this one. It's just a name.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the name is supposed to be weird, though. The point of this, because basically the Holmes story, which I can just go over real quick, is just a con job. It's literally just like a prince from Nigeria is trying to give you $5 million, like one of those. Except in this case, this weird dude named Nathan Garadeb, who has a weird last name, has someone contact him saying oh, my name's John Garadeb, and there's this rich guy in America who wants to give us lots of money if we find a third Garadeb. And it's just a con man, or a criminal who's trying to get him out of his apartment to find this other Garadeb who doesn't exist, so he could get in and get some money and stuff that someone else had stashed there.
Interesting.
So the point is that, it stands out as odd because the last name is so weird.
I say. Interesting. Anyway, Garadeb is there with his maid. I don't know if they mentioned it here, or I think they mentioned it a little earlier, but apparently, if you're middle class in Britain at the time, you have servant, or you have some kind of staff, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's sort of like a station kind of thing.
Yeah, it was like a status thing.
Holmes explains it a little bit later.
Oh, okay. I thought it was earlier, but or there's maybe optional. I don't know, whatever. At any rate, he's got a maid, and she's pouring him tea, and the little animation gimmick, which they do a lot, is she keeps accidentally overflowing the teacup, and burning his hand. He's like, "Confound it, woman!"
So I really like these characters.
It's not so accidentally.
Yeah, no, you're right. I'm sorry. Good.
I like these characters because you kind of pointed out one half where his face is the moon, but her face is shaped like the sun.
I didn't pick up on that until you said it. Yeah, because he has a pointy hair and a pointy beard, so he looks like like a moon.
And we only ever see him in profile, at least to start. So he's got the pure crescent moon silhouette.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then the maid's face is very round, and she's got the maid hat on that makes it look like little sun flares.
Her cheeks have jiggle physics.
Oh yeah, and her cheeks do have jiggle physics, which is honestly pretty funny. What do you call it? We ask about Sosuke, and basically the maid's he always looked shady to me, and then she's like, we're like, well, how? And she's like, well, look, every day he would go to the bookstore and he wouldn't leave until 5 p.m. And while everyone else goes to bed at 9 p.m., he could stay up until 2 in the morning. And Susato's like, I'm sorry, ma'am, but how do you know his exact routine to that detail? And including when other people go to bed. And like, this is where I noticed it wasn't so accidental because then like she spills the tea like on him to like kind of like
to shut him up,
distract or change the subject. Yeah. And whenever basically like anything like that's about to happen, she like that's when she spills the tea, it seems like.
Yeah. And it was at this point I had like my notes here. It's like, is this like a sub dom thing that I'm not catching on to? Like, did I stumble into something weird here?
I mean, it's either that. It's either consensual or it's not. And I guess if those are your choices, I would rather it be consensual. Because it seems like a whole lot of third degree or second degree burns.
I mean, it's definitely a way to like kick somebody. It's definitely more than kicking someone under the table,
Yeah.
But
we keep waiting for this game to get horny. It's going to happen at some point.
It's gonna be Von Zeeks. No, what happens next? So, okay, is there anything else we get right now? I feel like we don't.
I mean, we asked them if they saw anything.
Gyarados saw something, but every time he tries to say it, his maid spills tea on him and shuts him up.
Yeah, it seems like something happened around that time, but the maid doesn't let him say anything.
Yeah, it's like, oh no, it's foggy, you couldn't possibly see anything, we were having dinner. And it's like, well, there was that like one little thing, and then spills the tea, and we don't. She spills the tea to prevent him from spilling the tea.
There you go.
How to work it in, that was the question I had, and you got it. You got there. All right, no.
You can look around the room too, and there's a lot of evidence that he was not a very good military man.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the medal on the mantle is like a participation ribbon that they just give to anybody.
Yeah.
I didn't actually notice any of that stuff.
And also there are some signs of destruction around the room.
That's right. And there's like a burn mark on the carpet and things are broken and yeah.
And there's a cannon.
Oh yeah, there's a cannon, that's right.
Anytime you investigate something where it's like this military stuff that's apparently very highly kept, he's just like, oh, that old thing. Yeah, I just brought it home because, it's just nice to have around.
He also keeps calling everything Belly.
Belly
And
good.
I had trouble looking that up because that's a brand, like a capital B brand.
Yeah.
Oh, like Bali Midway, kind of. Oh yeah, you're right.
Yeah, just search for Burly British slang and you'll get a definition first result.
Okay. Yeah, it seems like it's synonymous with bloody. Like it was an intensifier that was somewhat dismissive.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, yes, this stupid thing. Everything's bullshit. Seemed to be the general tone of the usage, so probably didn't need to look it up. Unless I'm wrong.
I've heard bloody is just a quick aside, bloody in British slang is like pretty severe, right? As far as slang goes, like kind of like the F word almost, or is that just totally wrong?
I thought it was more like damn. Like I thought it was like one of those swears that you can almost say in front of children.
I see.
Like I thought it was on the other end.
The way I understand it is it is like fuck, and you can't actually say it on TV and things like that.
Yeah, I've actually heard people say bleeding instead of bloody.
Well, anywho,
if you're British, chime in.
Also, we apologize.
I don't. So we go to Natsume's room, right, to look around, I think, and then it's very, very full of books, and there's a cat on a pillow by itself, and now I know why.
Yeah.
And there's a receipt on his desk for a book that he bought at 4:45 p.m. And I looked over to the right side of the room, and who did I see sitting on a pile of books reading? But Herlock Sholmes, of course, and he mixes up our names, which is great. He's like I think brags about his memory, and he calls us Susato and Susato Naruhodo, which is awesome. And I think he misremembers something else too, which I don't remember. But
I think he asked us. He's like, that's the one with the snake, right? Like the case we were on.
Yeah, exactly. Like he misremembers like the circumstances, and it's like, and then he's just like, oh well, I was close.
He does that. Who are you guys again?
Yeah, and then so Holmes was basically like, because we asked him, like, you said he's the culprit, and he's like, I didn't say that. They asked me to, like, find the guy, and I said, yeah, this is indeed him, you know?
The guy
like,
who ran away,
like,
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I didn't say he was the culprit, you know?
He's just the guy that fled the crime scene.
Yeah. What happens next? What does Holmes do for us here?
And they found the guy because there were some books dropped on the ground, and they had the address of the old bookshop. And he went there, and that's where he got the address.
I see.
I think this is where Sholmes sort of explains to us just a bunch of stuff about British history.
The window tax.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where like so there was a tax. People started boarding up their windows because there was a tax on windows, essentially trying to be like a wealth tax. But instead of paying that, people would just kind of board up their windows and pretend it's like, no, this isn't a window, it's just a decorative house hole. But that was like 40 years ago. So the fact that this place still has the bricked up windows is like kind of implies that maybe it's a little bit like in need of renovations or like maybe they don't quite have the cash to get it back up to date because they did repeal the tax.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's all where we learned that maids are a status symbol. And if you like, between being lower class and middle class, having a maid is what makes a difference.
Right. Yeah, that's right. But then, and like Holmes is saying that there's that he thinks Garadeb's hiding something. He can't determine if that's, I guess, relevant or not, mind you. But he's like, it's something, and he wants to know what it is. So with that, if you go into your like traverse menu, you know, like where do I go next? The game says about Garadeb's room, like we haven't been there in a while, which is I think a nice like kind of way of signposting where you need to go next, but doesn't quite make sense in this instance because we just came from there. But I'll take it because I prefer the alternative. Because I always had a problem of where the hell do I go next in the Ace Attorney games, but in the investigation parts anyway.
Yeah, you just keep going to different places until you get the typewriter noise, and then you finally know you're in the right place.
Exactly.
Yeah, though we haven't been here in a while is the game's way of signposting. There will be typewriter noise when you enter here.
But interestingly, it almost seems like it's going to be a dead end because as soon as we get there, Garadeb's like, "Hey, sorry." Oh no, the maid's like, "Hey, I'm about to make dinner," and he's like, "Yeah, I'm sorry. You'll have to see yourself out." But you know, Susato and Naruhodo are like, "This is our only way, like clue of, or maybe like way of finding out like what's going on here." Fortunately for us, Sholmes is here anyway, like on the side,
hanging on the window.
Yeah, and of course, the maid and Garadeb are surprised to see him.
This one was kind of ruined by the new version because you kind of see his sprite pop up at one point to the side. And in the 3DS, they had less room, so you actually had to scroll right to see him completely.
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So, yeah, funnily enough, or not funnily enough, I should say, but like, they're kind of surprised to see him, you know, and maybe not too happy about it. But what's sort of interesting is that Holmes looks around the room in disarray, and he's got everything figured out, and he knows exactly how the room got like this in like it's in bad shape, and he's about to show us his, what is it again? His logic and reasoning.
The dance of deduction.
And we get that whole thing, and basically he concludes that you know, based on where he looks during the talk and everything like that, doing his little dance around, that Garadeb was obsessed with lions and brought an Indian lion into his home who trashed everything. And then what happened was there's like a burn mark, or I should say like a kind of a hole in the carpet, and this is that the lion, not sated by Garadeb's many bills, which surely like made Garadeb, you know, poor and in trouble, you know, being fed meat, and I think it's meat and potatoes and wheat and tea, you know, obviously gnawed on the carpet, and that's his deduction. So topic one is it's an Asiatic lion on a rampage, and topic two is the lion gnawed on the carpet.
And then they sold the lion to the circus.
Oh, that's right. And they sold the lion to the circus, right, to pay the bills.
Yeah, and he's sad that he had to do that.
So, yeah, and yeah, basically, we're like, but commons wouldn't, like, a lion can't fit in here. And Holmes is like, well, sometimes deductions go against common sense. And he's like, but wouldn't the lion, and Susato says, wouldn't the lion have hurt them, or maybe even worse? And he's like, he probably defended himself with the cannon. So Susato's like, you can do it, Mr. Naruto. Help out Mr. Sholmes here.
Well, one of the things that they point out is the list of items, like the meat, potatoes, tea was on that item. And they're like, well, why is tea on there? Lions don't drink tea. And Sherlock Sholmes is like, look, if that lion's been living in London, that lion drinks tea.
It was based, anyone of any conceit when they come to London will eventually be drinking tea. And Susato buys that, which I like too. Yeah. She's like that. There are no wonders of this country. So basically we have to course correct, and in which case we start noticing some things around the room, like, how does it start off?
Behind a lion statue is the photograph, which is newlywed bride.
Right, of Mrs. Garadeb, who, the face is, smashed in so you can't see who she is, but, I mean, very clearly
the photo, to be clear, the photo is smashed. Her face is presumably fine.
Right.
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. The part of the photograph depicting her face is smashed. Yeah, all right. Look,
Right. The important part of the photograph is that the wedding ring is very distinctive. It looks like a little sun.
Yeah. Let's keep it horny, people. No, anyway, right. So it's like, oh, Mrs. Garadeb, eh? So, and then, we're supposed to look at the maid for some reason, but in fact, we notice she has a wedding ring on, which is in fact hers. And it's revealed that, yes, actually, the maid is indeed Joan Garadeb. And basically, Mr. Garadeb can't actually afford a maid, but in order to kind of look good in their society, British society at the time, she pretends to be the maid when they have company over.
Right.
So, but she's mad at him, and she went on a rampage. And Holmes in his original deduction kept referring to the beast, meaning the lion, and he doesn't change that when he's talking about Miss Garadeb raging around. And Susato even notices she keeps calling her a beast, but and Naruhodo is honestly, and Mr. Garadeb's not correcting him, but whatever.
She doesn't seem that offended by it either. Everyone seems sort of okay.
Well, I mean, I think if you're gonna wreck the whole apartment like that, maybe she's a little proud of it. Hell yeah, I'm a beast when I'm mad. Don't fuck with me.
Beast used to be my nickname on the streets.
Exactly. They call me a beast when I serve tea because I'm so fast at it. I don't know. It could be a number of things.
We also talk about how much horsepower she has in her arms. Several points.
Yeah. Yeah. See, I think that's what we're going with. So basically what's great though is that she got really mad at him because she thinks, and I'm kind of glossing over it a bit, that Mr. Garadeb is cheating on her because there's a love note in one of the books near the bills, and the love note, which was being used as book tart, says to James from Mary with like a lipstick kiss mark, and he's like, first of all, my name is John, not James. And I think she's like, a likely story. And he's like, you think I'm making up my name? So she's basically jealous, overly so. And that's what's leading to the rampage. And it turns out if you look at the candlestick on the table, one of the candles is missing and it's really thin on the bottom. So they're thinking in her rampage, she knocked over a candle and burned the carpet, Yep. And that's the course correction. So they're like, you got it. Please don't tell anyone that my maid is my wife.
Yeah, they find out that the rampage took place exactly when the incident took place, and that's why they didn't see anything because they were busy fighting.
I see.
Yeah, and she burned the carpet, and everything else started burning too. Some of his books.
Yep.
I do want to point out that during the fight, that fire started. And he was standing between the fire and his wife, and she was still kind of attacking him.
And that there's a lot of smoke inhalation problems because of the fucking window tax.
Well, they, I think, have a working window, but they mention if you examine it, they even say obviously it's you can't see out of it very well. I don't know if the window was supposed to be frosted or foggy or what. But they say it's you can see out of it if you open the window, but no Londoner would ever open their window in the middle of winter. No one would ever do that.
Yeah, they keep going back to how cold it is and how foggy it is. The implication that if the window was closed, you're not seeing very far.
Yep.
So I think, if I remember, that's kind of it in a way. Like, we're sort of like, oh my gosh, it's getting late. And it's like, and we're like, we don't have much time to decide whether or not we're, going to represent.
First, like, Naruto goes like, well, how does this help me with the case? It's good that we figured it out, but that doesn't help me at all. And Holmes says, like, I didn't promise that it was going to help you.
Yeah.
I knew he was hiding something.
Yeah.
To be fair, Holmes really did say that, So, but basically he gives him kind of like, what do you believe in and all this stuff. And he's like, well, I think I have to believe in the truth, justice, or the client, But he decides to go back to prison to Natsume and tell him, you know what? Hey, I will represent you in court tomorrow. And he's like, oh, thank you so much. And he goes, you know what? Because
But on the way.
Oh, you're right. I'm sorry. I forgot about this. You're right.
We see an altercation between a man who...
Two new characters.
Yeah, two brand new characters we've never seen before. We run into a guy that I want to describe as a fop, but the friend I was playing with described as just a literal incarnation of a playing card, who is constantly quoting Shakespeare, and apparently fighting with a guy whose jaw is the size of a grapefruit. And I don't think we really get an idea of what they're fighting about. But the guy just keeps quoting Shakespeare until the other guy leaves. And I think we learned that the fop, who again, he's got these bejeweled things, he's carrying a scepter. This is a wild looking man. But I think we learned that he is the resident of the first floor apartment. Is Natsume on the ground floor and he's on the first floor?
No, the ground floor he's on the ground floor and Natsume is on the second floor or the first floor.
Okay. But yeah, so that's really all we learned. He just quotes Shakespeare at us.
We do learn that he talked with Natsume about Shakespeare, like who was better, Shakespeare or someone else.
Who was stronger, Macbeth or Hamlet? That was the discussion.
Oh, right, yeah.
Who is stronger, quick, Macbeth or Hamlet? I'm going Macbeth.
Yeah, Macbeth is stronger.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah. He'd win in the fight.
Yeah.
I mean, Hamlet got stabbed by the poisoned sword, right? Spoiler alert, but
Hey, I was going to watch that play or read that book.
Did Venom do thy work? I mean, come on. Get out of here. Jerk. Anyway, Macbeth is a war hero. All right, enough of this. Sorry. Anyway, so yeah, the guy, the guy who keeps quoting Shakespeare. Yeah. What's his deal?
We do not know.
We don't know.
We never get a name.
There's two lodgers at the Garden place. One of them is not Spain. One of them is this guy who we don't know who he is.
Gotcha.
So at that point, we just have to kind of go, okay, and then head over to the prison because visiting hours are almost over. So we need to tell him we're representing him if we're going to.
Yep.
And we haven't decided at this point, so because then Sherlock Holmes also shows up at the prison.
That's right, and that's right because the guy's like, "Oh no, not you."
Yeah, it's at this point that we are kind of having thoughts about, like, we're kind of coming into our own as a lawyer. We're wondering about what it is that's right. Should we believe in our clients or should we take like an objective view? And he isn't sure really how to approach it. And then Sherlock Holmes comes in and kind of relays his side of the story where he believed in Naruhodo, who was the only other person in a locked door murder, simply because that was what his gut was telling him, and he trusts his own instincts more than anybody else's.
Yeah, he basically says, fool me once, shame on me. And that's the phrase. That's how it goes.
That's it. Yeah, no, that's all he needs to say.
Yeah, that's all you need.
But
more importantly, we also learn a bit about Van Zix here and his history.
Wait, what did we learn about that?
So we learned that so he hasn't been in court for a couple of years now, but before that he was known as the Reaper because he only went after the very worst of criminals. And he didn't win every case, mostly because there were some corrupt lawyers that could convince the jury that the clients were innocent by manipulating evidence and doing bad stuff. But even the case that Van Zix didn't win, the victims would always disappear after weeks or months later. So some of them got hit by carriages, some of them drowned in the Thames, some of them got sick, but everyone died.
Yeah, Soseki also asks us to summarize it succinctly in 16 salient words. Mm-hmm. And we summarize it precisely as, no defendant has ever survived a trial in which the Reaper stands for the prosecution. And then that's only 15 words, so we add ... ever.
Yeah, I'm not going to get into here because it's long, but I'm going to write probably a Twitter thread about this specific line. Because it's a very interesting one. The original line, how they translated it.
I'm looking forward to it.
But it's going to take way, way, way too long to explain it here, so I'm not going to.
Explain it in 16 salient words.
Easy explanations excite
me.
Eggs. No,
yeah, we have 30 more.
No, I'm doing alliteration. It's the other callback, the other reference.
Oh.
Jeez. I can't. All right, I don't know. Look, all I know is it's time for trial, okay? And we're gonna save this jerk who apparently is a real person, and I had no fucking idea about that. But next time, I think.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I mean, before he's not, is there like what did we think of this chapter? Everybody happy with it?
I mean, anyone have any theories? Because we actually stopped in the middle of the chapter this time.
I don't know if there's enough information for theories right now because we don't really have anything that's going to indicate who else was involved. It seems like all we've done is eliminate suspects and get some.
Yeah, we learned a lot about just British culture. We learned what the bobbies do on a day-to-day basis. We learned about the window tax. We learned about what it takes to be middle class. But we didn't really learn about. We didn't learn who any of the witnesses are, really, or at least we didn't get to speak with them. There's very, very little that we learned about the case, up to and including our client, who basically said, I don't know, there was a person there, and they were suddenly stabbed.
Yeah.
I learned more about, our client on this podcast than I did in the game, to be honest with you.
That's the one thing about the localization that you're like, it's so tough because how do they tell you who this person is without having to write something entirely new that isn't present in the original version?
I know, they literally named him. You wouldn't think you could get more explicit than that, but that is in fact not enough.
Yeah.
You don't strictly need to know that this is a real person, but the game, as it was originally written, expects you to know. It's a reference, and a reference that is not obscure to the original audience of this game.
Maybe a little caption when he pops up that says, hey, this is a real person, go look him up.
Just a little VH1 pop-up video.
Or just awkward dialogue. Sosuke Natsume.
I will say that maybe I will give you some food for thought, but there is more foreshadowing about the actual case in what we've read so far than you seem to think. But I guess they did a good job of obscuring it. So
I mean, I'm assuming we must have learned all this for a reason. But both Giradib and our client both have gone to either used bookstores in general or maybe the same used bookstore. Things, there are little hooks, but nothing that I feel could fit together right now.
I mean, if you I feel if you're actually onto who did it or whatever right now, that you might actually in fact be the Iris Wilson,
Yeah, I don't think you probably can't, but some of you said some things during this recording that made me think that maybe you were thinking about some of this stuff.
That we were the murderer?
But apparently you aren't actually, so.
Sorry to disappoint you. We don't have a thought.
We're not as smart as we look.
I think the maid did it.
Yeah, the butler always does it too.
Right. So now it's the maid.
Yeah, well, you have to switch it up. Well, that's the thing. Like Holmes would think the butler always does it, but then you have to course correct. And you call it.
The one thing that I did notice about this case that it's not theory crafting, but we actually talk about previous cases like the characters do, which seems very odd to me. Like we talk about the case where we met Sherlock Holmes, and we talk about the case that did not have a snake in it. And we talk about how weird we feel about the fact that our last client was probably guilty, but we got him off, except then he died. And so I find it really interesting that the characters are actually reflecting on their past.
This game is, I think, the most serialized of the entire series. Mm-hmm. It's much more of like one single long story than a bunch of unrelated cases.
Which is weird because you can select the individual chapters like they're self-contained stories.
They are and they aren't. Every one of them is self-contained, but they are also part of a larger arc.
Well, I mean, I think like a lot of Phoenix Wright was, except you get like one case. Again, I'm going off the earlier games, which I played, like the Steel Samurai case you'd get, or the blah blah blah.
Any of the third cases really were usually pretty individual.
The circus case. Right, where it's like, okay, it's one more just to establish Edwards with your rival, but that's really it.
In this one too, I mean, this case in this game is the one that is like kind of not related to the big story, but even this one is more related to the big story than they usually are.
And we get character development out of it. I really feel like these people are reacting to what's happened to them, and they are developing through it. Like
they're well written, yeah. I like Susato. I really like Susato.
I like her too.
I like everybody.
I like them all. Yeah, actually, they're all pretty fun. Well,
so I guess we'll see in the next episode when we go through the trial exactly how everyone we've met now is involved.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm assuming we're doing the whole trial for the rest of the chapter.
Yeah, it's going to be about the same length, I think, as this one was.
All right. Well, folks, thanks for listening.
Please peruse our perfect podcast.
Please peruse. Hey, not bad. No, yeah, I can't do one. You got it. You win. Please peruse. Actually, let's. Yeah, awesome. All right, later, folks.